Picture yourself clinging to a mast as 40-foot waves crash over the deck, and the man next to you drops his rope and runs for cover. In that moment, you're not just witnessing fear, you're watching a death sentence unfold for everyone aboard. During the age of exploration, cowardice during storms wasn't just frowned upon, it was literally forbidden by maritime law, punishable by death, and for good reason. That'll chill you to the bone. Subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because we're diving deep into the brutal reality of why courage wasn't optional when the seas turned savage. Recognize the stark truth about 16th century maritime survival. When tempests struck, every single crew member became a vital link in an unbreakable chain of survival. Historical records from the Spanish Maritime Archives show that ships with disciplined crews had a 73% higher survival rate during major storms. The smell of salt spray mixed with terror filled the air as seasoned captains shouted orders over howling winds. A single sailor abandoning his post could doom 200 souls to the ocean floor. And the storm was just beginning. Feel the crushing weight of collective responsibility that bound every man aboard those wooden fortresses. Ship manifestos from 1580 reveal that crew contracts explicitly stated, "Abandonment of duty during peril shall result in immediate execution or marooning." The rough hemp ropes burned hands raw as men hauled on lines with desperate strength. Captains understood that one act of cowardice could trigger a cascade of panic, turning trained sailors into a terrified mob. The sea wind grew stronger with each passing hour. Listen to the brutal logic behind these unforgiving maritime codes. Portuguese naval regulations from 1590 documented that 84% of ships lost in storms failed due to crew breakdown, not structural failure. The creaking of strained timber echoed like breaking bones as vessels fought against mountainous seas. When one sailor fled his station, others would follow, leaving critical sails unmanned and the ship at mercy of the elements. The thunder masked the sound of splintering wood. Imagine the visceral fear that gripped men when storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Dutch East India Company logs from 1610 recorded wind speeds during major storms reaching up to 120 miles per hour, hurricane force that could snap masts like twigs. The metallic taste of blood filled mouths as sailors bit their tongues to stay focused through the chaos. Ships became floating prisons where courage was the only currency that mattered. Death circled, like a patient predator. Contemplate the horrifying mathematics of maritime survival during tempests. English Admiralty records show that during the Great Storm of 1703, ships with full crew participation had a 43% survival rate, while those experiencing crew desertion had only 8%. The stench of vomit and fear permeated every corner as vessels pitched at impossible angles. Maintaining sail control required precise coordination. One missing hand could mean losing an entire mast to the fury of the wind. The darkness swallowed another ship whole. Visualize the instant justice that awaited those who showed cowardice when lives hung in the balance. French naval codes from 1665 authorized captains to shoot deserters on sight during storms, with witnesses required to confirm the killing was justified. The cold steel of cutlass blades pressed against trembling throats served as final warnings to the weak-hearted. Ship discipline wasn't cruelty. It was survival mathematics, written in blood and salt water. The sea demanded its tribute. Observe how the confined space of a ship turned individual cowardice into collective catastrophe. Spanish galleon blueprints reveal that most vessels measured only 120 feet in length, cramming up to 300 souls into impossibly tight quarters. The grey putty mass of bodies pressed together in terror created a tinderbox of panic waiting to explode. When fear spread, it moved faster than wildfire, consuming reason and replacing it with deadly chaos. The storm showed no mercy to the weak. Recognize the brutal initiation rituals designed to weed out potential cowards before storms struck. If you think these maritime laws were harsh, share this video with someone who needs to understand how survival demanded sacrifice, because we're about to explore punishments that made death seem merciful. Venetian merchant records from 1640 describe courage trials, where new sailors were deliberately exposed to dangerous conditions to test their mettle. The smell of abandonment clung to those who failed like a funeral shroud. Only the proven strong earned the right to face real tempests. Understand the psychological warfare that storms waged on human minds trapped at sea. Portuguese medical journals from 1620 documented a condition called tempest madness, a complete mental breakdown triggered by prolonged exposure to maritime terror, the acrid smell of gunpowder from signal cannons mixed with the sweet scent of approaching death. Men who broke under pressure didn't just endanger themselves, they became contagious carriers of panic that could infect entire crews. The wind howled like lost souls. Analyze the economic factors that made cowardice a capital offense aboard merchant vessels. Dutch trading company ledgers reveal that a single ship's cargo could be worth 50,000 guilders, equivalent to $2.5 million today. The taste of copper pennies filled mouths as sailors realized their lives were measured against profit margins. Investors demanded crews that would fight to the death to protect their investments, making courage a contractual obligation sealed with blood. The storm claimed both cargo and dreams. Confront the religious justification for executing cowards during maritime disasters. Catholic. Maritime law from 1575 classified abandoning ship duty as a mortal sin equivalent to suicide, condemning the perpetrator to eternal damnation. The musty smell of prayer books mixed with the sharp tang of fear sweat as chaplains blessed weapons used to maintain discipline. Divine providence, they preached, helped only those who helped themselves through unwavering courage. The tempest tested both faith and flesh. Perceive the horrifying efficiency of summary executions carried out during active storms. English naval logs detail cases where cowards were bound to masts and left to drown as examples to others, their screams serving as motivation for remaining crew members. The metallic smell of fresh blood washed away by salt spray created a grotesque baptism of terror. These weren't acts of cruelty, but calculated moves to preserve the greater good. The darkness hid nothing from justice. Record the lasting psychological scars left on survivors who witnessed storm time executions. Spanish confessor reports from the 1660s describe sailors tormented by nightmares of comrades killed for cowardice, their ghosts allegedly haunting subsequent voyages. The choking taste of guilt, mixed with the bitter flavor of survival, created wounds that never healed. Many survivors never sailed again, preferring poverty on land to the moral compromises demanded by the sea. The memory lingered like a curse. Evaluate the brutal efficiency of maritime courts that tried cowardice cases after storms passed. Admiralty records showed trials lasting less than 15 minutes, with execution following immediately upon conviction. The smell of wet rope and spilled wine filled improvised courtrooms as ship's officers served as judge, jury, and executioner. Justice moved swiftly because delayed punishment lost its deterrent effect on future storms. The verdict was always the same. Discover how the prohibition against cowardice created a paradox that defined the age of exploration itself. French philosophical treatises from 1680 noted that the very voyages that expanded human civilization were built upon systematic brutality toward human weakness. The grey, putty mass of fear and courage swirled together in sailors' hearts like oil and water that never mixed. Men conquered oceans by conquering themselves, but the cost was measured in souls as much as gold. The storm had passed, but the lesson remained eternal. Conclude that the prohibition against maritime cowardice reveals a truth darker than any tempest. Civilization's greatest achievements often rest upon foundations of calculated cruelty. When you face your next challenge, remember those nameless sailors who chose death over dishonor, not from noble ideals, but from the simple knowledge that collective survival demanded individual sacrifice. Their courage wasn't heroic. It was simply the price of staying alive in a world where weakness meant extinction for all. The smell of abandonment still haunts every deck where cowardice was forbidden, and the wind still carries their silent testimony across centuries of forgotten storms. These men didn't choose to be brave. They chose to survive. And in making that choice, they wrote the brutal mathematics of human endurance in salt water and blood, creating rules that governed not just ships, but the very expansion of human civilization itself. Leave a comment below sharing what this story taught you about the real cost of exploration, and remember to subscribe for more untold stories from history's darkest corners. Don't miss the video and playlist that will appear on your screen.